Welcome to Cinema Convos. This is the show where we bring guests with different tastes in film to have a meaningful discussion about the art of cinema. I'm your host, Yash. I'm here with my co-host, Zach, and our special guest, Ramanika. And today we are discussing the film Fantastic Mr. Fox from 2009, which was written by Wes Anderson and Noah Baumbach and directed by Wes Anderson. And it was starring, this is the hard part, starring George Clooney, Meryl Streep, Jason Schwartzman, Bill Murray, Willem Dafoe, Owen Wilson, and among many others. And in Fantastic Mr. Fox, an urban fox cannot resist returning to his farm raiding ways and then must help his community to survive the farmer's retaliation. Before we get started, I want to issue a quick spoiler warning. We will talk about plot points in this movie, so if you haven't seen the movie, we recommend checking it out beforehand. And also, before we get started, I want to give Ramanika an opportunity to talk about her new yoga studio and her endeavors as a yoga instructor.
Hi, thanks for the intro. My name is Ramanika. I am a yoga teacher at Black Swan in Houston, and I recently just opened up my own studio out in Cyprus, Revive with Yoga. So yeah, check us out on Instagram, follow. Hope to see you there.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to link everything to this episode whenever it goes up. And yeah, if you're in the Houston area and need a new yoga teacher, Ramonika's great. Okay, to get started, we wanted to ask you, what is your first memory or best memory with this movie?
Okay, so my first memory with this movie, growing up, always read Roald Dahl books. So before this movie came out, I had already read Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was really exciting for me. And when the movie did come out, I was obviously like in middle school or something. So I didn't really know anything about like filmmaking or whatever. And so it was just really interesting to see Wes Anderson bring this to life and see it like very creatively and quite literally how a kid would see these characters. And I remember watching it again years later as an adult and thinking like, why do I still love this just as much as I did when I was 12? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also read a lot of Roald Dahl books, and we read this book in like fourth or fifth grade for sure. I don't remember reading it, but I remember seeing copies of it in our classroom. Then I saw the movie when it came out, so I've only seen it once until this week when I watched it again.
Like you watched it as a kid and then you didn't watch it till now.
Yeah, I just did that. Like I watched it as a kid and I watched it like today, or like some of it today, some of it yesterday. And I feel like this movie, like the way it's made, it works for kids and adults. Like I've only seen it from those two lenses, but there's something to appreciate both ways, which is kind of interesting. I know Zach just saw it for the first time recently.
Yes, I did actually. Yeah, watched it for the first time Wednesday, actually. I had just never I had known about this movie. It was around. I just never really got around to watching it. And like Yash said, I had read Roald Dahl as a kid, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach is a classic. That's also a great movie adaptation of a Roald Dahl book.
There was a period of time in middle school where all I was reading was Roald Dahl books.
I mean, yeah, and I feel like all the adaptions have been so good, like Matilda, James and the Giant Peach, like they're solid.
Yeah, I just watched the musical Matilda, the new one. It was okay. I like the 90s one a lot more.
Really?
But I like musicals. I haven't seen the stage production, so I guess I didn't know what to expect.
I mean, this kind of reminds me of James and the Giant Peach, mainly purely because of the stop motion aspect.
Yeah.
I also like it because, it does have that kind of, like stop motion animation has that, it can appeal to kids, but it's also kind of quirky enough in that Wes Anderson style where
I mean, all the Roald Dahl stories are really quirky and weird, so it kind of suits itself to a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's a perfect like a glove. It feels uniquely Roald Dahl and uniquely Wes Anderson at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a lot of like deep stuff in these movies, these stories too. Like I remember watching Matilda as a kid and being like kind of terrified. Like I was I was very stressed out when they're like hiding from Miss Trunchbull, and I don't know. I feel like in this movie, I noticed a lot of like watching it again. I'm like, there's a lot of like deep themes in here about like knowing who you are in the world and things like that. Like Mr. Fox is like, this is how I used to be, but this is who I am now. And he's like kind of going back to his old ways. And I feel like a lot of us do that as we get older. But on its surface, it's just like a fun like heist movie with like a bunch of hijinks.
Yeah.
But then you look into it and there's two scenes that come to mind that I really noticed this time. I took note of it. Let me see. So like in the beginning when his cousin what's
Christopherson.
his son's name though?
Ash.
Ash. So Ash like hates Christopherson and he's like, you can sleep on the floor or whatever, like I don't care what you do. And then he like starts like weeping, and then he comes down and like starts the toy train, and I'm like, that's really a sweet moment where a character like does the grown-up thing. But then also when his mother, what's his wife's name? She's Mrs. Fox.
I just say Mrs. Fox.
Mrs. Fox, okay. She tells all of them like, oh, we're all different. That's what makes us cool and like interesting. And I'm like, that's like deep stuff in a kid's movie.
Yeah, and they say that it's different.
Yeah.
With the little hand motion.
Yeah, they do a lot of quirky stuff.
Ash, I know what it's like to feel different.
I'm not different. Am I?
We all are. Him especially. But there's something kind of fantastic about that, isn't there?
Okay, while I was watching, like, there's just so many quick moments of like weird writing that make it feel like a Wes Anderson movie. It's like quick whips and like it just moves nonstop. And it's hard to remember every little thing they said.
You know, I remember like when I watched this movie in middle school, like obviously I wasn't into film at the time. And when I was in, I want to say 11th or 12th grade, I went to the movie theater to watch Grand Budapest Hotel. And at the time, I still was not that into film. Like I didn't pay attention to who was directing what. And I watched that movie and I was like, oh my God, this looks so familiar. Like, what is this? And I just think that shows how iconic, like all the imagery is, that kids who don't know anything about movies can like see and recognize Wes Anderson's like artwork. And yeah, it's just, I mean, like Zach was saying, I love the stop motion and it's just so beautiful.
And I've always had a respect for stop motion because I know how much work it is just looking at it. Like, look, if you ever watch the making of a stop motion scene, it takes like so much effort just for like one small movement.
Oh yeah.
So I really do admire the craft there. I feel like my favorite animated movies are not the stop motion ones for whatever reason. Like that's just, maybe it's a coincidence because like a lot of the Pixar ones and some of the DreamWorks movies are among my favorites. But I think it's really cool when they do stop motion. And also, I didn't know this was written by Noah Baumbach as well. Like I learned that today, like while looking this up, because I wasn't really on the Baumbach train until like Marriage Story. Like
you weren't on it in 2009, Yash? Come on.
I didn't know and now I know that he made this. I feel like my whole life is a lie.
No, but also if you think about it, I feel like Wes Anderson and Noah Baumbach, you could tell they would probably have a lot of overlap. I don't know.
Yeah, they can definitely collaborate, and the movie can still feel like a shared vision.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like Noah Baumbach, Wes Anderson, and like Charlie Kaufman, I feel like kind of all in that same vein. That Noah Baumbach more like Charlie Kaufman, you know.
I mean, just Wes Anderson alone, he also made Isle of Dogs, which I love that movie. It's very similar to this one, but I saw it when I was much older, so I feel like I appreciated it like from the get-go. Whereas this one, I watched it when I was a kid and I liked it, but watching it again, I was like, I don't remember any of this.
Yeah,
this is actually a very well-written movie.
Well written, and then there's like little, I guess, I don't want to call them Easter eggs, but like things to dive deeper in just like everywhere. I remember one of the things I was like thinking about after I watched it was Mrs. Fox is always painting landscapes that are like, you know, there's a tornado in them or a lightning storm or something. And so I feel like surface level, you see that and you're like, oh, like it must be foreshadowing like something bad is going to happen or whatever. But then I was thinking about it, and like so much of the movie is about how like animals resort to like their old instincts and like their wild animals. And I thought maybe her landscapes and like all the destructive stuff is more like animals are always having to like have their survival instincts on. So like it never stops. And that's why like even in the last scene when it's like a happy ending, she's like still painting a landscape with a tornado. So.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, there's a lot of animals just doing what there's even a whole scene where he talks about like each animal's like greatest strength. That's like just their natural strength.
Yeah.
The poor one guy is like, you're just a very nice guy. And you're just always around.
Available to be available.
That's what he says. Yeah.
Listen, you're Kylie. You're an unbelievably nice guy. Your job is really just to be available, I think. I don't know your Latin name. I doubt they even had opossums in ancient Rome.
It's great. It's just little things like that that are just, I couldn't keep up with this movie. Like watching it as attentively as possible, like taking notes, pausing it every few minutes or so. I couldn't keep up with all the little things they said. There's too much. It's great.
No, for sure.
But yeah, what are some of your favorite aspects of the movie? Like really anything. What stands out to you the most?
Okay, immediately, two of my favorite scenes, and they happen kind of close to each other. The first one is whenever Mr. Fox is sitting and he's like at the breakfast table and she puts the food in front of him. And then there's like napkin and fork, and he just like, it looks like he's about to be like a proper man and like eat this
Yeah.
food, but then he like ravages it and like attacks it.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first saw that scene as a kid, I rewatched it 80 times. Like I kept rewinding to like watch him attack his food.
Yeah.
And so I love that scene. And then it's funny because it's a very similar scene that happens shortly after where he's in the office with, I think it's like the beaver, his lawyer, whoever his
Oh
lawyer
yeah,
is.
yeah.
The badger.
And, yeah, the badger.
Badger.
And they start cussing at each other and like they're like, "Arr," and they're like going around the table
Yeah.
and they're just being animals. And I don't know why, something about that just like I feel that in my soul.
Yeah. And the word cuss is brilliant in this movie. Like they can just swear as much as they want in a PG movie, basically.
Honestly,
by
yeah.
replacing every curse word with the word cuss. Like I think at one point he calls something a cluster cuss, and I'm like, I know what he's saying. Like as an adult watching that, I'm like, they're just swearing in this like kids movie, and it's great.
It's amazing without saying the word, you can kind of convey what
Yeah.
you're trying to say.
It's kind of like how when they would bleep it like on The Office, and you'd be like, oh, that's a clever way to them to curse on cable television.
My favorite scene, I think my favorite scene was movie. It's kind of toward the end, I guess. It's that scene where like Mr. Fox is like devising kind of the rescue plan for how they're going to rescue Christopherson, and then he goes through every animal's strength. But he also says their Latin name. He goes through and says like their Latin name, and like I don't know why, I just kind of love that. It's so quirky and kind of nerdy, and they have the Latin name on the bottom part of the screen, and it's just I don't know. I just thought that's just a Wes Anderson. Like that just I don't know. I love that scene.
All right, let's start planning. Who knows shorthand? Great. Linda, Lucha, you got some dry paper? Here we go. Mole, Talpa Europea, what do you got?
I can see in the dark.
That's incredible. We can use that, Linda.
Got it.
Rabbit, Oroctologous cuniculus. I'm fast. You bet you are, Linda.
Got it.
Beaver, castor fiber.
I can chew through wood.
Amazing, Linda.
Got it.
Badger, Melis.
Demolitions expert.
What? Since when?
Explosions, flames, burning things.
Demolitions expert. Okay, Linda.
Got it.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I was watching that today, and I was laughing because then later they're confronted by the dog, and I think he's like, you forgot the blueberries, and then he looks at his hand and he's like, oh, it's written right there. Like it's like blueberry. I think my brother walked in on me watching it during that scene, and we just both started cracking up. Like, this is so funny.
It's so
like,
obvious. Yeah, it's
like,
so obvious, but it's so fun.
Yeah.
It's
Also,
like
I love where it says blueberries. It's extremely detailed. It's not just
it's like pointing at it and just
drawing of blueberries around it. Oh, how did I miss this?
Yeah, I think with Wes Anderson, all of the movies I've seen, at least, it's always kind of weird, and it doesn't feel like a real world, which is part of the appeal. Like it doesn't feel realistic, which is why it's fun, I think. Like the way they talk and the way they interact is kind of like out there, but they're always saying something so either funny or interesting that it keeps it going. And I think the best example of that for me is Grand Budapest Hotel. That's my favorite of his that I've seen. Although I haven't seen a lot of his earlier movies. Let's see. I have his page pulled up here.
Royal Tenenbaums.
I haven't seen Royal Tenenbaums. I haven't seen, I think,
Darjeeling.
Yeah, like any of his early stuff I haven't seen. So I'm pretty behind. Like I've seen The French Dispatch. I've seen Isle of Dogs. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of these. I've seen Moonrise Kingdom. That's a fun one.
Rushmore. It was
Yeah,
filmed in
Rushmore.
Houston too.
Yeah, he's like born in Houston, right?
Yeah, he went to St. John's.
I didn't know that until I looked it up like recently. I was like, hey, he's one of us. Inspiration.
He went to UT too.
Oh wow, I didn't go there, but that's
We'll
cool.
hook 'em.
You're outnumbered. Just kidding.
This is an Aggie podcast, if you didn't know.
It's definitely.
Well, not when we're talking about Wes Anderson.
You know what?
Yeah.
Fair.
I have to see all of these movies, like Aquatic Life,
Aquatic Life is great.
Darjeeling Unlimited. But I kind of know what to expect from him, like in terms of style. At
That's
least
mean. I don't like that.
no, like I think he'll do something new with the story every time. There's a lot of directors who fall into just doing the same thing. Like like I was talking this to another friend the other day because we were talking about M. Night because he has a new movie coming out, and I'm like, at least he does something different every time. Like it's always something new, whether it's great or awful. And I feel like Wes Anderson is the same way. Like you're gonna see a very colorful movie with like good dialogue, but it's gonna be something different. Like it's not gonna be the same story. Whereas like Scorsese, as much as I love him, he's made like maybe too many gangster movies. Like there's just like he can probably make something else.
Yeah.
But no slander on Scorsese. He's still one of the goats.
I love that whenever we watch a Wes Anderson movie, we can just expect like symmetry in the
Mhm.
shots. And I just find it so like satisfying to watch.
Yeah. It looks really nice always.
Like, and sort of about you were saying about Scorsese makes too many gangster movies, you know.
It's like you're criticizing Marvel, but then you're making like a 4-hour gangster movie with like the same actors you worked with your whole life. It's like you're doing the same thing.
You know, Wes Anderson, a lot of movies he has, his movies don't have the same subject matter. They're
Yeah.
about very different things, but they got that unique style. You
Yeah.
can take it all the way through. I mean, it could be about a rich family. It could be about, you know, a stop motion film about foxes. It
Yeah.
could be about a hotel. It could be
Yeah.
about all these things. But you have your trademark style. I really think that is just super cool.
Yeah. Also, like every Wes Anderson and like Noah Baumbach film ends up on the Criterion Collection. I think they're biased. Like
It's almost automatic. I think that's just an automatic.
It's automatic. It's just there's so,
Automatic
I was
qualifier.
looking at because I've been buying more Criterions and like all of his movies are on Criterion.
I really like Wes Anderson's first movie, Bottle Rocket.
I have not. Have you?
I
seen
have
it?
not seen it now.
Bottle Rocket's really good. That was his like directorial
It's his
debut
first,
because
right?
I think the earliest thing of his I saw was Rushmore. That's it.
Yeah, that's a second.
That's-
98.
it's like Rushmore's like his big break because he co-wrote Bottle Rocket with Owen Wilson, and
Oh, really?
Owen and Luke Wilson are in it too. If I'm not mistaken, I think they met at UT. They all met at UT, I think.
Owen Wilson went to UT also.
I feel like I should have known that.
That sounds like yeah. That should have like Lightning McQueen went to UT.
Yeah, they all went to, I believe they all went to
Yeah.
UT because Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson are from Dallas, kind of similar
Oh,
to
okay.
how Wes Anderson went to St. John's in Houston. I think Luke and Owen went to like kind of a prestigious private school in Dallas too. So they had that in common. They met in UT. They started making movies.
Yeah.
I feel like Owen Wilson has that same Matthew McConaughey twang. I should have known it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's in this movie as the
Like
coach. It's
the
funny.
coach,
He has,
right? Yeah.
he has a pretty small role, but he does have, you know, sizable billing on like the poster and
Yeah. That scene is
Yeah.
great when they're in like then they're playing that, what was it, wiffle ball?
Wiffle ball, and does it not seem oddly similar to cricket to you when they're like
no.
running around? I just thought that was like cricket.
Yeah. And then he's like, I'm getting better, right, coach? And he's like, yeah, we can say that or something. Like,
No,
You're
it
not
does
getting
seem-
worse.
you're not getting worse, which is not what you want to hear, but it's better than nothing, I guess.
It does seem similar to a cricket. I think it's called whack bat.
Whack
Whack
bat.
bat,
Wiffle
yeah.
ball, I think, is real.
I kind of love that kind of the world building there. Hey, let's create our own sport for this movie.
Well, it's real simple. Basically, there's 3 grabbers, 3 taggers, 5 twig runners, and the player at whack-bat. The center tagger lights a pine cone, chucks it over the basket, and the whack-batter tries to hit the cedar stick off the cross rock. Then the twig runners dash back and forth until the pine cone burns out and the umpire calls hot box. Finally, at the end, you count up however many score downs it adds up to and divide that by 9.
Got it.
Yeah, because we're talking about how all of Wes Anderson's films have like a similar style, but this movie is also a stop motion movie. So does it remind you of anything else? Any other movie that gives you a similar feeling?
Oh my gosh, those movies I used to watch as a kid. I don't even know if I could tell you what they're called. It's that bald guy and the
Oh, Wallace and Gromit.
yes, right.
Yeah.
Those are like the
Love.
original stop
Yeah.
motion.
I know I used to
watch.
watch Chicken Run a lot. We had Chicken Run on VHS, so I watched
Yeah.
it. One.
Love Wallace and Gromit, dude. Like when I was a kid, I watched Wallace and Gromit. That movie, Curse of the Were Rabbit. I loved that movie.
Oh yeah, I didn't watch that. I don't think.
And I
I've heard
like
of
their
it.
TV show. I
Yeah,
like their
Pinocchio
show.
from this year. Kubo and the Two
Mhm.
Strings.
Oh, the
Kubo and the
Pinocchio
Two
from
Strings.
this year was stop motion?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't see it.
the Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good
Kubo-
movie. Missing Link, that was a good one. Fantastic Mr. Fox. Coraline is nightmare fuel. Terrifying.
I love Coraline.
It's good though. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anomalisa, that's the one they made. That's one Charlie Kaufman made. That's like for adults.
You know what imagery I just like ate up in Fantastic Mr. Fox
Mhm.
when he'll make that comment, Mr. Fox to Mrs. Fox, and be like, "You're glowing," or "We're glowing,"
And
and then
they're
they show
glowing.
they're glowing. I
Yeah.
just love that.
There's so many things like that just happen, and you just kind of have to roll with it.
Yeah.
There's no time to like process it, which is
Mm.
really it goes to show that this movie just has that fast pace.
Like I really love that. Like it's hard to keep up with the
Yeah.
dialogue.
I feel like it's like I'm not really that artistic of a person, and I'll like walk by an alleyway and like it'll be like a dirty alleyway and whatever, but like hipsters with like a camera will take a picture of it and it'll
Yeah.
look so cool.
Mhm.
Like I can't understand how he just like takes like something so normal and just like makes it glow or like
Mhm.
whatever it is he does.
Yeah, it's crazy. And at the time, I think this movie was like pretty groundbreaking. I think stop motion, like they made a bunch in the early 2000s, right? Like Wallace and Gromit and all of those, but then they kind of stopped.
Yeah. You remember Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that
That's
many
great.
times. That's a super short movie too. You can watch it like
This movie wasn't even that long either. It was like what, 90 minutes?
it's less. It's like an hour and 20.
Yeah.
It's very short.
I like that.
It's
It's
yeah,
refreshing now.
yeah, it's not that uncommon for animated movies to be short, but some of them like you can tell a pretty compact story in 90 minutes.
And also, like, I remember I was noticing this too when I was rewatching it the other day. Like when they go to the first farmer to like burglarize it, they show it in detail.
Mhm.
And then the second one, they just kind of do it really quick through the cameras,
Yeah.
like the security cameras, and you just see it happen, then it's over. Like, to me, that's like, yeah, like you don't need to waste time
Yeah.
showing enough. Like, we get it. And so it's just, yeah. I
We
appreciate
saw that they're capable of doing it, so we don't have to see the whole thing like play by
Exactly.
play. And I will say it's more often I will call a movie too long than too short. So it's nice that this movie is kind of quick and short.
Yeah. I guess because it was also made for kids too, right? So
yeah,
it has to be.
kids have short attention spans, and even adults nowadays. So, do you have a favorite character in the
Mr.
movie?
Fox.
Yeah, Mr. Fox is
Yeah.
definitely my favorite, but I love his opossum friend.
So yeah, I would say like after Mr. Fox, my favorite is probably Ash and Christopherson. But I
Yeah.
feel like they're like a unit.
Yeah,
Like one story is nothing without the other. But Mr. Fox, obviously the movie's about him, so he gets like a deep dive.
it's really funny that one scene where where Ash is like, hey, I need to talk to Christopherson for a second. Can you go away? And then she leaves, and he's like, was I kind of rude to her? And he was like, yeah, you definitely were. And he's like, yeah, I'll deal with it later. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
even care. And I just thought that was really funny. I don't know why.
I love that Christopherson does so much yoga in the movie. So
He does. He meditates, and he's just all around like healthy guy.
yeah.
He's an athlete. That's what they call him in the movie. Who's your favorite character, Zach?
I think my favorite character, I don't know. I mean, Ash is probably up there. I didn't like Ash at first, but then I really kind of started to,
I don't think you're supposed to like him at first.
I don't know. He grows on you. The whole thing of like the not particularly good at anything. You're in the shadow of this cousin who just showed up. He's like, oh, he's good at
Yeah.
everything. Oh, now I'm supposed to live up to him. My
Yeah.
favorite character is probably the Badger. I like the Badger.
Is that Bill Murray's character?
That is Bill Murray.
Yeah.
That's probably part of it why I like him
Yeah.
so much. I don't know. I
Also
love
appears
that
in a lot of
scene.
his movies.
Yeah. I love that scene. Almost one of the closest things to a dramatic scene they have in this movie is where it's like a lot of good animals are gonna die because of you. And that's the Badger saying that to Mr. Fox.
That was heavy.
A lot of good animals are probably gonna die because of you! We've been digging in circles for 3 days. Half the woods have been obliterated. Nobody can get out. Right now, my wife's huddled at the bottom of the flint mine with no food, no water, and 27 starving animal brats.
Bill Murray isn't just funny, he's a good actor.
Yeah,
Even
he
when
is a good
playing
actor.
Badger.
He's been in so many things. Well, speaking of that, actually, I feel like with the Wes Anderson movie at this point in time, especially with how like there's always hype generated around it, he gets these like enormous like ensemble casts. So I mean, looking at the cast of this movie, is there anyone in this movie that you feel like is like one of your favorite actors or anything like that?
Well, I think that George Clooney's voice for Mr. Fox was
Yeah,
flawless.
it was
Like
perfect.
if there could not have been a better voice for that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I do find it kind of strange that like without knowing that Meryl Streep is Mrs. Fox, like the voice is perfect.
Yeah.
But knowing that it's Meryl Streep, I'm like, oh, that's a weird. I would not have picked that. Just
I didn't
based
even
on
know it was her while watching it today.
I agree. No, like I agree. I feel like whenever you hear, because Meryl Streep, I guess, has been in animated things before, but
Mhm.
whenever you hear her, you're like, wow, really? Meryl Streep? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the fun parts about watching animated movies is seeing which voices you can recognize. Like Owen Wilson and Willem Dafoe, like right away I knew it was them. Like when
Oh,
he
Defoe, that was perfect. I love that.
as the rat. What does he say when he like dies? He's like he's just another rat like behind a Chinese restaurant or
Oh my
something.
God, that was so sad.
It's so sad. It's like it makes me sad.
It literally warmed my heart. I
Yeah.
just, yeah.
But yeah, Bill Murray is easy to recognize, and yeah, George Clooney's voice I think is great for this
I
role.
think as a 12-year-old, I knew that was George Clooney.
Yeah, he's good at playing these like charismatic, like likable dudes.
I loved Willem Dafoe, but I didn't recognize him at first. I
Yeah,
knew he was in the movie, but I just didn't know who he was. I guess I just didn't recognize him as the rat. But
but now that you know, you'll definitely recognize it when you watch it again.
Even my
yeah,
sister
upon
was like, "Who's that? Who is that?"
Mhm.
upon
Yeah.
second watch, I'll be like, of course.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
then I also like just the voices. I guess like Michael Gambon,
But who was
who
he in this?
played Bean. He played Bean of one of the three farmer
Oh,
guys. He was kind of the main farmer guy. He's been in other things. Can't remember what he's been in, but
he's Dumbledore, dude.
He was Dumbledore.
I'm pretty sure he's like the second Dumbledore.
oh gosh, he was. Oh
Yeah,
my
he
God.
was. Yeah, he was. He's
What am I doing? What am I
Dumbledore.
thinking?
That's like his biggest role, probably.
Geez, that's well, that's where I know
Actually,
him
Bean
from.
was definitely bigger than
Bean.
Dumbledore.
I just, he's obviously the arch villain of this film, but he's almost like someone you can laugh at too, because he's just too over the top and be like, why the hell do you care so much, dude?
Yeah,
Freaking Fox.
I mean, yeah, you definitely root for the animals in this movie. Of
Yeah, I understand they stole the chicken, your chickens, they stole that guy's cider. Yeah. I get
Oh
it,
my,
but
you know what? That reminds me of like when the rat was dying and they were like, "Why'd you do it?" And he was like, "Oh, cider," like whatever. I was like, "Oh my God, this is deep about addiction. Like this is a lot."
yeah, like his last, like he's like he wanted cider before he died.
I hadn't thought about that.
It was crazy. There's a lot in this movie that I feel like if you wanted to unpack it, you definitely could. Bringing that up, are there any other like themes in this movie that you think are profound?
Well, I feel like the largest theme that they tried to tackle was that whole internal fight that Mr. Fox was having with himself about being a wild animal or being like
Mhm.
civilized.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like that has to do with like the wolf. He's like, "Oh, I'm scared of a wolf. Like I have a phobia of wolves." And then he sees a wolf at the end and
Mhm.
it's beautiful because I guess like whatever like animals like gut instincts are and like however they like respond naturally is like something beautiful and you shouldn't
Yeah.
be scared of it, you know?
Mhm.
I don't know. I love that.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot. I think the biggest thing I noticed is just how like at the beginning, Mr. Fox is like, oh, like is this who I'm gonna be? Like I thought I'd be like someone else by now or something like that. Like he wants to clearly provide for his family and he's struggling to like find a way to do that. Like he buys this house, like this tree that he's like not equipped to purchase, but he does it anyway. So I feel like there's a lot of parallels to being an adult that I definitely didn't notice as a kid.
Mhm.
But yeah, what about you, Zach? What did you notice in terms of
I
themes?
feel like I guess the most pressing thing what Ramanika, the most prominent thing she said,
Mhm.
is just the whole thing of like being a wild animal, You kind of have the tendency to revert back to your nature,
Yeah.
We're all wild animals. Mr. Fox is a chicken hunter, he
Mhm.
hunts chickens, no matter how much he tries to be a family man, newspaper columnist.
I also love it when they were getting chickens. He was like, make sure you like bite the neck hard enough, and then he's like, his friend is like trying to bite the neck, and he's like, my teeth are not built for this. Like,
Yeah.
you remember that?
I
It's
also
funny.
love it how in that scene they like the camera turns away and they show the blood. It's like that's gruesome. That's awful.
Yeah.
Ah. But no matter what he does, he tries to be these things, kind of reverts back to his nature. And that's goes back to that speech near the end, like we're all just a bunch of wild animals. I also like the theme. I don't know. I like the theme. I don't know what theme to really go into, but kind of them at the end, kind of moving into the sewer. Sometimes it's the theme of kind of you have to adapt sometimes.
Yeah.
Your life can be uprooted sometimes. Things happen. One day you're living in a tree, and the next that tree is gone. You got to go live underground in the sewer. Obviously, that's not the universal experience, but people's lives get uprooted all the time. They have to adapt and survive. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Your tractors uprooted my tree. Your posse hunted my family. Your gunman kidnapped my nephew. Your rat insulted my wife, and you shot off my tail. I'm not leaving here without that necktie.
Okay, so we've mentioned earlier that this is based on a book by Roald Dahl. I remember reading it, but I do not remember the book at all. I don't know if you have anything to say about, is it like true to the material, or because at the beginning they showed like an actual copy of the book, which is kind of a cool way to say like this is based on a book. But do you remember if it's like actually following the same story, or if it just kind of used the name?
Honestly, it's been 20 years since I read the book, so I don't know if I can say so, but I do know that like how they had that jingle in the movie, like Bogus Buns and
yeah,
like that's from the books.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so I think that they pulled a lot from it. I do think I read somewhere that like more of the adult themes were introduced by Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, all the hijinks and like heist stuff that like pretty directly came from the book.
Yeah, and that's what I remember too. Like I remember in the book they just keep robbing these 3 farmers.
But again, we were children, so that could have gone over our heads.
Maybe we need to reread it, because I feel like Roald Dahl has these like books that are posed as like for kids, but then they have a lot of grown-up themes.
I read Roald Dahl for like a very long time, like, and books like Matilda, they're like 400 pages or something, like they're huge.
Yeah.
And I remember reading, there was this one called Henry Sugar and the Six More, and I read that one in middle school, so I like remember it a lot better than like Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I saw the other day when I was like Googling Fantastic Mr. Fox to come on here that Wes Anderson is making Henry Sugar and the Six More, and it's coming on Netflix this year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
pretty soon. I had not heard about that.
And that one is like it has very adult themes for a Roald Dahl book. So.
Yeah, because I read like all of his main books. I read Matilda, Charlie and Chocolate Factory. I read The Witches in middle school, which the HBO movie for The Witches is not very good. I haven't seen the 90s one. There's another movie.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be better.
It's just crazy to me because it just Wes Anderson and Roald Dahl, like, and these fantastical worlds just go so hand in hand.
They really do. Yeah, it feels like it's made for him to create like a movie version.
I'm sure.
I always thought this movie was like a comedy, but I feel like there's a little bit of a drama element too in it. I don't know. What would you define this movie as genre wise?
I think it's definitely heist drama over comedy.
Yeah.
And I just think about like the scenes where like, okay, when Mr. and Mrs. Fox are in front of that like waterfall and they're like, I love you, but I shouldn't have married you. Like that is so drama. Or when Mr. Fox is telling Ash like, hey, like, you're an athlete, like I'm proud of you, like that's so drama.
Yeah, there's a lot of like dramatic moments in this movie.
Oh my gosh. Or another major one is like how they constantly talk about Christopherson's uncle being sick and stuff. Like that's like dark.
It's like a lot of things going on that I think they just say funny things, but there's a lot under the surface that's like pretty deep.
Yeah, it's a drama that they make light.
Yeah. Well, with the heists and hijinks that are going on.
Well, like I think it definitely has dramatic elements, but I think overall, it's a comedy that has a heart. Really, I mean, it does have those dramatic elements, those heartfelt things. But I think on its surface and its DNA, it's a comedy. I mean, I really do think.
Is like, what is it? Dark comedy? Is that a genre?
Yeah, but it's almost like a light comedy, if anything. It's almost like, but it's hard to call it a dark. It's hard. I mean, it does have dark elements, but it's hard to call it a dark comedy like a black comedy. It's hard to call it that necessarily. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, with Wes Anderson films, I feel like there's always a dramatic element that sometimes it's easy to overlook because they're saying just hilarious things constantly. But then it's like even like Grand Budapest, I remember it's very funny, but there's also there's a plot that keeps you on your toes, and like it ends up in a intense situation that's not really like funny. It's just like more engaging to watch. From what I remember, it's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, but I definitely think it's more of a comedy with some drama in it than a drama with some comedy in it. Is in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you can make a case either way. Like this is one of those movies where there's no right answer necessarily, it's just how you watch the movie.
And also, like, I guess whatever mood you were in to focus on whichever parts.
Yeah, that's true. You can, depending on whatever you're going through in life, you can kind of watch this movie in different ways. I feel like this movie has a pretty notable score, like the music in the background, like whenever like that drum beat will start whenever they do something. Do you think the score does it add to the movie, or do you think it's like, what do you want to say about the score, I guess?
Okay. I am not a movie buff, but I will say when I don't like pick up on it as much, to me that's a good sign because that means it felt so natural watching it.
Yeah.
You know? So
That's fair.
yeah.
And also this movie has a few like songs too. Like it has like a pretty solid soundtrack, I think.
Oh yeah.
That like I don't think when I think of this movie, I don't think like, oh, that movie had like an amazing score. Like that's not what I think about. I think more about the writing and like the animation.
I agree. That's yeah.
But it's definitely an element of every movie that's worth looking into, because sometimes the score will is trying to tell the audience how you're supposed to feel in this scene.
I mean, yeah, honestly, I think the score is one of my favorite elements of the movie.
Yeah, I mean,
really
it's a good score. It's fun, and it lines up well with the pacing.
It fit the movie very well. It's kind of got that kind of light sound, but like it really fits the story well.
Yeah, it's a good solid score. And that scene where that guy's singing the song like while they're doing the heist is pretty funny.
That is funny.
He's like, I'm just making this up as I go. He's like, well, you're writing a bad song.
Oh, actually, yeah, I remember. I love that.
Yeah.
Bad song, PT.
It's great.
Now those three farmers sit where there's a hole was once a hill, singing diddle-dee-da-da-doodle-do-doodle-dum. And as far as I can reckon, they're sitting up there still, singing zippy-zee, zappy-za, yappy-yo.
What are you singing, PT?
Just making it up as I went along, really.
That's just weak songwriting. You wrote a bad song, PT.
So this movie came out in 2009. Let's talk about, do you think it got the hype it deserved? And how does it compare to other movies from the same year? And Zach, maybe you can tell me, how did this movie do, like box office wise? Or
Okay, so I mean, I can say box office, it broke about even. It had a $40 million budget, and it made $46 million in the box office. Actually, that's not breaking even, because if you include marketing and stuff, that's actually a net negative. So you could call it not a box office bomb, but maybe a box office disappointment. That being said, it really, I think even at the time, got recognition for its, its artistic achievement. And
yeah, this movie like is one of the movies that like in film circles, so many people talk about it. So I'm surprised it didn't make enough money to.
It gets reputation. It gets the street cred in film circles that animated films don't usually get.
Yeah.
I don't know how like Isle of Dogs did, but maybe this movie was just like a little ahead of its time. And that's why, like, if it came out a little bit later, it might have done better. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, I saw Isle of Dogs in theaters.
I did too. That's my point. Is like maybe it just needed our generation to like go to the theater to do it.
I didn't see this in theaters. I saw it at home. I was pretty young when it came out, so it's at least it didn't make like a terrible, like negative, like total bomb, because that would be kind of upsetting.
No.
But yeah, I think it's aged well for sure, because it's a movie that, again, like, let me pull it up on Letterboxd right now.
But then also, if I could say, 2009 was a great year for animated films.
Yeah, I mean, Up came out, and that's why this movie didn't win.
Up came out this year.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Up got that Best Picture nomination, which doomed every other animated movie from.
True. Up came out this year. Coraline also came out this year.
Oh, that's a fire year.
Yeah, 2009 was very good for animated.
You know what, though? In my heart, it's between this and Coraline. Up,
yeah.
No.
I like Up a lot. I think it's slightly overrated.
It is overrated.
Which I hope I don't get like canceled for this. Everyone's like, whenever I have a discussion about Up, it's always the same way. They're like, but the first 10 minutes. I'm like, yeah, but there's also a whole movie after the first 10 minutes that's not as good as the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like they're like, but it's so sad. And I'm like, it is. It's very sad. But I don't know. It gets kind of wacky for me. Still a great movie. Still in my top 10 for the year. I like Up more than this movie, but that might be upsetting.
They can't see my eye roll happen right now.
But I think they're both going for different things. They're not really trying to accomplish the same thing.
Sure.
I'll say my top 10 for 2009. It might it might raise some controversy, but 500 Days of Summer, one of my favorite movies of all time, came out that year, as well as District 9 and Three Idiots, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I do love Avatar. That's my hottest take. I saw Precious not too long ago. That's a great movie.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
The Hangover, a Golden Globe winning comedy, which is crazy to think about.
Love it.
Up, Hachi, A Dog's Tale. I guess that's on this list. I saw that recently.
Oh, yeah?
That's a very sad movie. And The Blind Side. Maybe The Fantastic Mr. Fox would bump off The Blind Side. I don't know. I haven't updated this in a while.
That's the one that you would consider bumping?
Yeah,
Are you
the
kidding
rest of these would stay.
Oh my God.
But
I personally like Fantastic Mr. Fox better than The Blind Side, honestly.
yeah, I'm just a sucker for
I like
feel-good
Fantastic
movie.
Mr. Fox more than I like Avatar. Okay?
Most people
I
don't
agree.
even like Avatar, so
I agree.
Keep The Blind Side, bump Avatar.
That'd be a flaw in the system. Anyways,
Inglourious Bastards also came out this year.
oh yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah.
The
But
Hurt Locker.
my opinion of Tarantino movies are kind of weird. Like Kill Bill Volume 1 is my favorite one.
The Kill Bill movies are in my top 10.
But
ever.
Volume 2 is my least favorite.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not joking.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like Kill Bill Volume 2 as much as Kill Bill Volume 1, but I wouldn't say it's my least favorite. I think Kill Bill Volume 1 is easily in my top 3 Tarantino movies.
Yeah, Volume 1 I like a lot. Yeah, that's my top one. But I feel like Tarantino, it's kind of, he does like, I feel like all of his movies kind of have the same style, but he also just throws in like a new premise or script. But,
yeah, he does. I mean, he does in a similar way like Scorsese does. He's done quite a few gangster movies, but not as much as Scorsese. I mean, he's done his early stuff.
More
His
like
first three,
more like a Western than like gangster movies.
Well, he's done both. I mean, his first 3 were gangsters. His like two of his last 3 were more Western.
Oh, I really like The Hateful Eight. I know people like to bash on that one.
I love that movie.
I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Because I also like Murder Mysteries a lot. I think that's one of the better ones. Just like the way it unfolds is very, very fun.
What you say about Tarantino is he's done, he did 3 gangster movies, then he did like a martial arts revenge movie, then he did a war, I guess you could call Inglourious Basterds a war movie.
Maybe.
Then he did 2 westerns, and then kind of a tribute to like, not golden age of Hollywood, but like 60s Hollywood, kind of a.
Yeah, I liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's just not what I expected.
Yeah.
It was an interesting movie. But anyways, we're just not a Tarantino episode. We're getting a little off topic.
I digress.
We haven't done a Tarantino movie yet.
We have not. We need to do that.
We haven't done a Wes Anderson movie yet, actually, till today. I don't think.
That's a tragedy.
No one's picked one. That's not our fault.
I think I have this thing where I need everybody to think I'm the greatest, the quote-unquote fantastic Mr. Fox. And if they aren't completely knocked out and dazzled and kind of intimidated by me, then I don't feel good about myself. Foxes traditionally like to court danger, hunt prey, and outsmart predators, and that's what I'm actually good at. I think at the end of the day, I'm just...
I know. We're wild animals.
I guess we always were.
So, moving on. How do you feel about the ending of this movie?
I think that the ending is lovely and very satisfying. And I noticed something when I rewatched it this week that I'd never seen before. But when they're all in the grocery store, like, having a good time, and they like do that final toast with Mr. Fox, they all have apple juice boxes except Ash.
Yeah, he has the grape juice.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
And he's different. I just love it.
Yeah, it kind of ties back to how his mom was like, you're different, and that makes you who you are. Like,
yeah, it's special. Yeah, I loved it.
That's a very small detail that I noticed, because like he's like, his mouth is like purple, and like he's just like how did you drink this? But yeah, that's a good point. That ties into the theme of, I think this movie kind of celebrates being your own person and being different. Like, again, when he tells Kylie like you're very nice and you're always available, but that's what makes you you. Like, he makes it sound such an ordinary thing, like sound special. And I think this movie kind of celebrates that.
No one's ordinary. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, it's seemingly ordinary.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's ordinary.
Yeah.
Because he's like my favorite character, honestly, after Mr. Fox.
I also love when stories just like come back full circle. And so the fact that she's like pregnant at the end,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff just satisfies me.
Yeah. It's a very good ending that wraps up the story nicely. Like it tells you everything you need to know about the characters, and it feels like everyone's learned their lessons, which is nice.
I was gonna mention kind of one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I don't know, it's very short. It's
Okay.
Bean, kind of that one. This is basically a meme at this point, but it's with the one where he's like really angry and he's just throwing all
Oh
the
yeah.
stuff, all the things, just tearing up the kitchen or that room.
That's
he's in.
horrifying.
Yeah, just tearing everything up. I've seen that as kind of like a reaction gif on things, and that's like one of my favorites.
Yeah. That's a funny part.
I don't know why, but stuff like that always stresses me out. I guess since it's an animated movie, less so, but I know like when I'm watching live action movies and they make a mess like that on purpose,
Mhm.
I always think like, oh my God, who's gonna clean this
Yeah,
up?
actually, I have similar reactions. It's like whenever a house gets destroyed or like something.
Yeah, it's who's gonna pick up this?
It's kind of like how when I have this tradition that I started when I was like 21, 22. Zach knows about it because he's been in a few of these screenings, but we always watch Project X before my birthday just to get in the right mindset. And I'm like, you got to watch this movie like with the mindset that you're attending this party, because if you imagine you're hosting it, it's like a horror movie. It's
Oh
like
yeah,
everything
no.
gets destroyed. Like it's kind of reminded me of that for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, annual Project X feeling. So moving on to some of our last questions. Is there anything in the movie you would change to make it better, or do you think it's perfect the way it is? And there's no right or wrong answer. Either is right.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch it. I think like everything tied up nicely, like a bow. Yeah, like I honestly don't know in the like how you're supposed to feel at the end that Mr. Fox will just be like, I think you're supposed to think he's not going to be a family man. I think you're supposed to think he's going to keep robbing grocery stores and like being who he wants to be, but then like also being a father and all these things. And I don't know, it all just fell into place. I just love it.
Yeah. It's a very neatly put together movie. I don't know, like I don't think it's a perfect movie, but I also don't think you could change it and make it better.
So, you know, I think that you have this weird outlook and how you gave it like what, a 4 out of 5 or whatever.
A solid 8.
I think that like the only way a person could ever give a movie a 10 out of 10 is if they have like some deep connection to a movie. Otherwise, like this is a perfect movie. The only thing missing is like your deep connection to it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I connect deeply.
Yeah.
This is why I think it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean I think especially nowadays, it's really hard for me to give a movie a 10 just because I feel like I've seen so many movies and I think I'm becoming harder to impress.
Stingy with your 10s.
I'm like, I can't give these 10. I think last year, like in new movies, I gave out 2 10s. And that number used to be closer to like 5 or 6 a year. So I don't know if it's like the movie quality is going down or if I'm just becoming more cynical. But either way,
you know, I think it's hard to give something a 10 out of 10. I can hardly give something a 10 out of 10 in anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just that kind of person. If in a movie I watch, in a show I watch, in a song I listen to, in a meal I eat, experience, I have a hard time giving something a 10 out of 10.
I mean, that's why I don't review music or food, because I feel like if I like it, it's like, why would I not give this a 10? So that's why I'm not either of those things.
You're not a music critic or a food critic because you give everything 10s out of 10s.
Like if the food is good, like I don't know why I wouldn't give it a 10 on that.
Right.
If it fulfilled my expectations.
You're right.
Whereas I can be more critical of movies and television because I've seen so many movies.
There's a lot more to critique, a whole lot more themes to critique in a movie.
Even I don't like reviewing books either. I mean, I rate them on Goodreads, but it doesn't feel like a proper rating system because it's just like, it honestly comes down to how long did it take me to read this? It took me like 6 months, and I wasn't busy. Like that means it wasn't as good as I thought it was. Did you have any questions or talking points you wanted to bring up for either of us?
Yes.
Okay.
I do have it's like a controversial Wes Anderson question.
Okay.
So you're like, oh shit. So he does this not as often in this movie but he does it a lot in all of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm referring specifically to the scene at the end when they're living in the sewer system.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of pans like starting at the top of the sewer, going all the way down, and you see like each family kind of doing something, like each animal family. And I have read that people don't like when Wes Anderson does shots like that because it feels like his characters are just puppets and not like actual characters or like people or animals or whatever. But I always liked those kinds of like montages of like everybody. So I don't know. I just wanted to know what you guys thought.
Yeah, I mean, I never noticed that. I mean, I kind of enjoy those scenes too. They're fun and they keep the pace of the movie going along.
Yeah.
You know what every character is doing. Like they're preparing for whatever they're about to do next.
I don't necessarily agree with the whole thing that it's like they're like puppets. I mean,
yeah,
I like it, you know, it wraps it up nicely. It's like, here's where our story will end, you know. It's an epilogue, you know. It shows, well, here's where we, after that whole thing that we just watched, here's where we ended up. And I think that's, you know, it's a very, very important, a very good way to wrap up the story and be like, well, you know, here's how things turned out because, you know, I know you were wondering, you know, it does. I don't necessarily think the whole puppet. So like, it's a whole thing. Wait, so like when you say puppet, you mean like?
I feel like I've just heard people refer to it as like it takes the depth out of the character.
Okay. No, I could definitely see that. I don't agree, but I could definitely see why they would think that, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if it takes the depth. I just think...
I don't agree with them either. I just wanted to make sure you guys didn't think that.
Yeah, no, I think there's an art to making a good montage. So I think it can be very valuable. We're going to move on to our last question, which is, so if you had to convince someone to watch this movie, what would you tell them? Or like, what's your sales pitch for the movie?
Oh God. You know, this is like, it reminds me of being in business school right now. And I have to give like an elevator pitch. Like
it's kind of inspired by that setting.
That's exactly what that is. It's your elevator pitch to this movie. To be honest, I feel like that's what we should call this segment. What's your elevator pitch for this movie?
You know, I feel like it would depend first who I'm talking to. Like if I'm talking to a child or if I'm talking to like someone our age. And if it's someone our age, I feel like I would be like, well, have you ever had like an existential crisis? Because then you should watch this
you'll
movie.
relate to this movie for sure.
Yeah. And then I also think this movie is it's great for people who don't like to have serious conversations, but it forces you to, like in such a lighthearted way.
Yeah.
You know? And then if it's a kid, I'm like, oh my God, do you want to see like robbery? Because kids love that.
Have a fun time watching this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. This is one of those movies that you could convince a kid or an adult to watch, and it'd be a completely different conversation with the...
And it'd be like so accurate for the both of them.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say, like, if you want to watch something light and fun, there's stuff in this movie for you. But if you want to watch something with like deep themes, this movie also has that. I'd want to know if they're generally like a fan of animated movies.
You know, actually though, my sister is not a fan of animated movies and she loves this movie.
Okay. Maybe she likes animated movies more than she thinks.
Maybe, you know, she's the kind of person that you have to like force to watch something. And then she's like, oh, like when I took her to the theater to see Parasite, I didn't tell her it was a foreign film because I knew that would turn her off.
Right.
And then when she's there, she's like, oh, this is amazing.
It's so funny because I think about myself and how like growing up, I was like, okay, I don't like horror movies, I don't like musicals, and now I like love both of those genres when they're done right. So I think a lot of times we think we don't like something if we have like a bad experience, like with one movie. Like I don't know what I watched. I mean, I just thought I was too scared to watch horror movies for a long time, and I was when I was younger. Like I would lose sleep if I watched something too scary. But with musicals, I think I was just like, oh, is it because my parents made me watch all these Bollywood movies like growing up?
That's what I was gonna say. My sister probably hated foreign movies because she watched too many bad Bollywood ones growing up.
But then you like start watching a lot of good foreign movies and like, oh wait, there's actually a whole world of cinema out there, which is really cool. Yeah, because when Parasite came out, I had to see it by myself. I couldn't convince anyone to watch it. Zach, you didn't live in the same city as me. I'm sure I could have convinced you.
Oh yeah, you could have. Yeah.
I had a pretty. I'll share my Parasite story because it was interesting because I used to live walking distance from the Angelica in Plano. So I just walked over from my apartment and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go see Parasite like early in the morning, like 10, 11 o'clock. And they're like, oh, all of our screens are broken today. What? I was like, what is going on? And I was like, I was determined to watch this movie today. And then there was like a Cinemark nearby that was playing it. So I just checked the times and drove over. But I think I spent an hour just finding a theater to watch it in. and I watched it with, I'm pretty sure everyone in the audience was Korean. It's before the movie gets like blown up and become like this Best Picture frontrunner. And yeah, it was great. It's great that I took the time to see that. But I feel like I'm at the point now where like if there's a movie I want to watch and nobody wants to see it, I'll just go watch it.
Oh,
Like,
I used to do that in college.
yeah.
When I remember my senior year of college, that's when everybody had Movie Pass.
Oh yeah,
And
I had that too.
yeah, no. And I remember I used to go literally 5 times a week by myself, and it was so fun. I was living in Austin, so I used to go to Alamo Draft House, and I would get a milkshake and a big thing of popcorn, and that was like the best time of my
The
life.
one on Lamar Street?
I used to go to the one on Lamar, and then there was another one in Mueller I used to go to, just depending on showtime.
Because I went to the Lamar one once when I visited Austin. I saw the Big Sick there.
Oh.
I saw the Big Sick in that same theater.
Maybe we were at the same showtime.
Maybe.
It was in the summer though, so I don't know.
Oh yeah, and I doubt it.
All right, Zach, what about you? What would you do to sell this movie to someone?
I mean, it really is a movie for the whole family. I know how cliche that sounds, but
it is.
It really is. It's good for the kids. I mean, I think it's good for the kids. Like, it's that stop motion animation that they like, a la stuff like Chicken Run, Wallace and Gromit. It has enough humor, relatable themes for the adults, jokes that they would get that the kids wouldn't, but not so much that it's inappropriate for the kids to hear. I think the quirky, if you like Wes Anderson or you don't, or you don't like if you like Wes Anderson or you don't know you like Wes Anderson, it's that quirky sensibility.
This could be a good introductory movie if you haven't seen any Wes Andersons, I feel like.
Completely agree.
It's more accessible than maybe some of the others.
I agree. Like, I feel like French Dispatch is kind of like a little bit kitschy, but this is like less.
Yeah, I like this movie more than French Dispatch.
Yeah.
Because I think French Dispatch has the style that Wes Anderson is known for. I feel like I just didn't really get into the story as much.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Like I enjoyed watching it.
And you lose the story more easily there.
Yeah. Whereas this is like based on a children's book, and like they take the best parts of that book and then like add to it, so it works really well.
Canis lupus. Vulpus vulpus. I don't think he speaks English or Latin. Pensez-vous que l'hiver sera rude? I'm asking if he thinks we're in for a hard winter. He doesn't seem to know. I have a phobia of wolves. What a beautiful creature. Wish him luck, boys.
Good luck out there.
So we have reached the end of today's discussion on Fantastic Mr. Fox. I want to thank Ramanika for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. And be sure to check out one of her yoga classes if you're in the Houston area, or if you're making a trip up here.
Or follow me on TikTok.
Or follow her on TikTok. A big thanks to all of you for listening. If you enjoy our show, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can stay up to date with new episodes by giving us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as supporting us by checking out our available merch, which the link is available in our bio. And we hope you tune in next time.